My ex lied about being pregnant to trap me into marriage, so I waited patiently, collected proof, and destroyed her reputation without saying a word. I'm a 27-year-old guy. And I really thought I'd finally found the one. Samantha wasn't just my girlfriend, she was my calm after years of chaos. She was warm, confident, and had this way of making me feel like I was the only person who mattered. When we started dating, everything felt easy. She'd send long good morning texts, surprise me at work with coffee, and talk about how we were made for each other. For a while, I believed her completely. We talked about everything, our future apartment, our dream vacations, even baby names. She used to trace circles on my arm and whisper, "I can already see us growing old together." It was intoxicating, that kind of love that makes you forget to breathe. I was working long hours at my marketing job, barely sleeping. But every night when I came home to her, it felt worth it. I thought we were building something real, but every love story that starts to perfect has cracks you pretend not to see. I remember the first time I mentioned going out with my coworkers for a drink after work. Her smile faded instantly. "Why do you need to go out when you have me?" she asked, half joking, or maybe not. I brushed it off as jealousy, even found it flattering at first. But those comments became routine. Every missed text turned into an interrogation. Every female friend's name became a red flag to her. Looking back now, I can see how I confused obsession for love. The constant attention, the emotional highs, it all blurred into one addictive pattern. My friends joked that I'd disappeared since dating her, but I laughed it off. Because when someone tells you they love you that deeply, you want to believe it's real. I didn't know then that I wasn't falling in love. I was walking straight into a trap. It didn't happen overnight. The control crept in like fog, soft enough that I didn't notice until I couldn't see clearly anymore. Samantha started small. She'd ask me to text her when I got to work, then when I went on break, and then when I got home. At first, it felt like care. She just wanted to know I was safe. But slowly, it became surveillance. If I didn't reply right away, her messages would pile up. "Are you ignoring me? Who are you with? You've changed." The first real argument started over something stupid. I'd liked a coworker's vacation photo on Instagram. Samantha's face went cold, and she said, "You think she's prettier than me, don't you?" I laughed it off, but she didn't. That night she cried, saying she felt unwanted and that she just needed reassurance. I spent hours comforting her, apologizing for something I hadn't even done. That became the rhythm of our relationship. She'd break down, I'd fix it. Soon, she began dropping hints about the future. "You know I'm not wasting my time here, right?" She'd say, her voice half playful, but sharp beneath the surface. She'd send me pictures of engagement rings, wedding venues, baby clothes. I'd joke that we were still figuring ourselves out, but she'd just tilt her head and reply softly, "If you really loved me, you'd know I'm your future." Her charm was disarming. Every demand came wrapped in affection. When I tried to set boundaries, she'd twist it, saying, "I just care too much. Sorry for loving you more than you love me." And somehow, I'd end up feeling guilty again. I told myself she was passionate, that love was supposed to be intense. But somewhere deep down, a small voice started whispering that something wasn't right. And soon, that whisper would turn into a scream I couldn't ignore. It was a Friday night when everything changed. I came home exhausted after a long week, hoping for a quiet evening. Instead, Samantha was sitting on the couch, her eyes red and puffy, hands trembling as she clutched something behind her back. Before I could even ask what was wrong, she whispered, "I took a test." Then she pulled out a plastic stick and held it toward me. 2 pink lines. I froze. My mind blanked. "You're pregnant?" I managed to say. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks, saying she was scared and didn't know what to do. Every emotion hit me at once. Shock, fear, guilt, responsibility. I sat beside her, and she grabbed my hand, sobbing into my shoulder. "I don't want to lose you," she said. "I know this isn't how we planned it, but maybe this is fate." My heart raced. We weren't even living together yet. I wasn't ready to be a father, but hearing her cry like that made every protest die in my throat. She looked at me with trembling lips and whispered, You'll stay, right? You won't abandon me like my dad did my mom?" And just like that, I felt trapped. Not because she was pregnant, but because she knew exactly which words would corner me. That night, I barely slept. My brain kept looping through scenarios, moving in together, marriage, working overtime to afford a nursery. But something about it didn't sit right. She refused to show me the other tests, saying she threw them away because it felt too real, and I mentioned seeing a doctor together. She brushed it off. "It's too early for that." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to be the kind of man who steps up. But beneath all the panic, there was something else, a faint, uneasy feeling that this wasn't just an accident. It felt rehearsed, and deep down, I think I already knew I'd just been trapped. After the pregnancy news, everything started moving fast, too fast. Samantha suddenly shifted gears from anxious to glowing. She'd wake up humming, talking about baby names and where we'd raise our little one. Every time I mentioned waiting for a doctor's confirmation, she'd say, "You don't trust me? You think I'd lie about something like this?" Her tone wasn't defensive anymore. It was sharp, almost threatening. A few weeks later, she invited me to dinner with her family. Halfway through the meal, her mom smiled and said, "We're so proud of you for being responsible. A real man takes care of his family." I nearly choked. Samantha gave me that sweet, practiced smile, the one she used whenever she'd already won. After dessert, she held my hand under the table and whispered, "Maybe it's time we make it official." That night, she cried in my arms, saying she was terrified of raising a child without security. I was drowning in guilt and confusion. She kept saying she didn't want a big ring, didn't care about a fancy proposal. She just wanted me. So a week later, under the weight of everyone's expectations and her emotional manipulation, I proposed. The second I slipped that ring on her finger, her entire face changed. Her tears vanished, replaced by this triumphant smirk. Within an hour, she'd posted photos online, he finally asked. "Can't wait to start our forever." My phone exploded with messages, friends, family, even coworkers congratulating us. I didn't even have time to process what I'd done. At home, I tried to ask about doctor visits, how far along she was. She brushed me off with a laugh. "You're so uptight. Just enjoy this moment." But that moment didn't feel real. It felt like I'd signed a contract I never read. And the more she smiled, the heavier that invisible chain around my neck began to feel. The weeks after our engagement felt like living in a dream I didn't remember agreeing to. Samantha was glowing online, posting pictures of the ring, gushing about our miracle baby and sharing quotes about destiny and family. But behind closed doors, something didn't add up. She never mentioned morning sickness anymore. The doctor appointments were always on weekdays when I was working. And any time I asked for details, her expression hardened. One night, casually said, "Hey, maybe I could come with you to your next appointment. I want to hear the heartbeat too." She froze mid-bite. "You don't need to go," she said too quickly. "It's just a checkup." I tried to smile it off, but she slammed her fork down. "Why do you keep questioning me? You think I'm lying?" Her voice cracked, and within seconds, tears were pouring down her face. She accused me of being cold and unsupportive. Once again, I ended up apologizing for wanting to be involved. But that night, something in me shifted. I couldn't shake the thought that she was performing, that every tear was perfectly timed. So I started paying attention. When she said she'd been to the clinic, I'd check her location history. Nothing. When she said she was resting at her mom's, I'd see her tagged at brunch with friends. I finally confided in my sister, who listened silently and then said, "You need to get proof before you do anything. Don't accuse her, just watch." So that's what I did. Quietly. A week later, at a dinner party, Samantha laughed, clinking glasses of red wine with her friends. "Just one sip," she giggled, catching my stunned look. "It won't hurt." Everyone laughed it off, but I felt my stomach twist. No one pregnant drinks wine. That was the first moment I stopped feeling like a fiancé and started feeling like a prisoner trying to escape a lie. I couldn't take it anymore, the lies, the gaslighting, the feeling that I was losing my mind in slow motion. One night, after Samantha went to bed, I sat on the couch scrolling through our old texts, trying to find some kind of timeline that made sense. But every date, every story, every supposed appointment contradicted another. The more I looked, the clearer it became. She wasn't just hiding something, she was building an entire fantasy. I decided to reach out to someone who might know more, her best friend, Lila. I hesitated for hours before finally messaging her. Hey, this is awkward, but I just want to make sure Samantha's okay. She hasn't wanted me at any of her appointments, and I'm starting to get worried. Lila took a while to reply. When she did, her message was short. Can we talk on the phone? Her voice shook when she answered. She told you she's pregnant? She whispered. I said yes. There was a long silence, then a quiet, almost guilty sigh. She's not, Lila said. My chest tightened. She told us she faked it to make sure you didn't leave. She said you were getting distant, and she needed something to keep you committed before you took that new job. I felt everything inside me go still. Not angry, not sad, just hollow. Lila begged me not to tell Samantha she'd said anything, afraid of losing her friendship. I thanked her and hung up, sitting there in the dark as my entire world crumbled. Every memory suddenly looked different. Every tear, every I love you, every manipulation now painted in cold. Deliberate deceit. But instead of confronting her, something in me snapped the other way. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just decided to wait, to watch, to let her lie herself into a corner. That night, I started a folder on my computer called Truth. I promised myself when this ended, it would end on my terms. From that night on, I became an actor in my own relationship. Every smile, every touch, every I love you was rehearsed. I knew the truth now, that she wasn't pregnant, that she'd trapped me on purpose, but I couldn't let her see I knew. So I played the part of the devoted fiancé, while quietly gathering everything. I needed to burn her lies to the ground. I started small. Every time she texted me about doctor visits, I replied with sweet encouragement. I'm proud of you, babe. How did it go? Then I'd screenshot it. When she posted about feeling the baby kick, I commented something supportive and saved the post. I began keeping a hidden log. Dates, messages, social media screenshots, even short voice memos after arguments where she contradicted herself. Each file went straight into the folder, labeled Truth. The hardest part was pretending to care. She'd sit beside me, her head on my shoulder, talking about our future. And all I could think about was how fake it all was. I'd nod, smile, and hold her hand while inside. I was counting down the seconds until I'd be free. Sometimes she'd look at me with those sharp, calculating eyes like she was checking to see if her spell still worked. And when I smiled back, she'd melt into relief, kissing me like everything was fine. That's when I realized Samantha didn't love me. She loved control. She loved the version of me that obeyed, apologized, and made her feel powerful. I remember standing in front of the bathroom mirror one night, staring at myself, the tired eyes, the fake grin, and whispering, just a little longer. As if I'd learned one thing from her, it was patience, and soon, her own lies would do what I didn't have to destroy her. 2 months later, just when I thought she'd run out of lies to spin, Samantha called me at work. Her voice was trembling, shaky, broken. Can you come home? She whispered. Something's wrong. I rushed there, heart pounding, even though a part of me already suspected where this was headed. She was curled up on the couch, makeup smeared, tissues scattered around. When she looked up at me, she said it. I lost the baby. For a second, I just stood there. I couldn't react the way she wanted me to. My mind was too busy processing the insanity of it, the pregnancy that never existed, now ended in a tragedy that never happened. She cried for hours, sobbing about how she failed as a mother and God took her punishment too far. I held her because that's what she expected, murmuring empty words of comfort, but inside, I felt absolutely nothing. The next day, she posted about it online. A black and white photo of our hands intertwined with the caption, "Heaven gained an angel today." Thousands of likes. dozens of comments offering sympathy. My phone buzzed with texts from friends saying how sorry they were. I just stared at the screen in disbelief. Samantha had turned her fake pregnancy into a public tragedy, and somehow I was trapped in the performance. When I asked gently if we could go to the doctor for a follow-up, she snapped. "Why can't you just let me grieve in peace?" That's when I knew she'd planned this. The miscarriage was her exit strategy, a way to end the lie before I caught her. But what she didn't know was that it was already too late, because while she was faking grief, I was backing up every post, every message, every fabricated tear. And soon the world she built out of lies would come crashing down, not with shouting, not with anger, but with silence. After the miscarriage, I thought maybe things would finally slow down. Maybe she'd disappear from my life quietly, retreat into her web of lies and leave me in peace. But Samantha wasn't done, not even close. Just 3 weeks later, she sat me down one evening, holding my hand with a trembling smile, and said, "I've been thinking. Maybe we shouldn't wait any longer to get married." I stared at her. She was still wearing the same fake sadness from her miscarriage posts, still milking sympathy from everyone who believed her tragedy. My stomach turned. "Sam," I said carefully, "maybe we should give ourselves some time. It's been a lot." Her eyes darkened instantly. "So you don't want me anymore?" she snapped. I tried to explain, but she started sobbing, saying, "You'll leave me just like everyone else." I knew it. It was like watching a switch flip, the moment she realized pity was no longer enough to keep me. Within days, she was back to manipulation mode. Her family called, saying she'd told them I'd been distant and cold since her loss. Even my own mother told me, "She's been through hell, sweetheart. Maybe you should just be kind to her." I felt trapped in a world where everyone saw me as the villain and her as the wounded angel. That week, I hit my lowest point. I couldn't eat. I barely slept. I'd sit in my car before going inside, staring at the ring on her finger, wondering how I let it get this far. I felt weak, stupid, shamed, like I'd lost control of my own life. But somewhere beneath all that despair, something inside me hardened. I realized I wasn't just her victim anymore. I was her silence, her calm before the storm. And the truth? That was my weapon. The next time she lied to my face, I didn't argue. I just smiled. Because she had no idea that the person she thought she owned was already planning her downfall. I stopped reacting. That was the first step. No more arguing, no more defending myself, no more letting her see she could hurt me. Instead, I smiled through everything, every accusation, every manipulative tear, every passive-aggressive jab. And while she thought she was tightening her grip, I was already untangling every thread she'd spun around me. By then, my folder labeled truth had grown massive. Screenshots of every lie, every social media post, every time-stamped contradiction, voice memos of her fake crying, text from her friend Lila admitting the pregnancy was fabricated, even receipts proving she was never at the clinics, she claimed. I organized it like evidence for a trial. Not because I wanted drama, but because I wanted precision. I didn't want revenge fueled by rage. I wanted revenge that spoke for itself. I waited for the right moment. It came when she started planning our small wedding. She was sitting at my desk, scrolling through venues, humming like nothing had ever happened. That's when I sent the files anonymously to her family group chat, her close friends, even her workplace HR email. Everything neatly compiled. Screenshots, dates, context, proof. No explanations, no insults. Just facts. Minutes later, I watched from across the room as her phone buzzed nonstop. She froze mid-scroll. "What the hell?" she muttered, scrolling faster, her face draining of color. Then she looked up at me, eyes wide, trembling. "Did you?" she started, but I just tilted my head slightly, silent calm. She stood, her voice shaking. "You ruined me." But I didn't have to say a word. The truth had already done it for me. That night, while she packed her things in a frenzy of tears and denial, I sat quietly on the couch the same way I'd sat through her lies detached. Patient, deliberate, Because sometimes, the loudest revenge is delivered in silence. The next few days felt surreal, like watching a movie where the villain finally realizes the credits are rolling. Samantha's perfect world began collapsing piece by piece. Her family stopped returning her calls. Her workplace HR launched an internal review after ethical concerns surfaced. Friends who used to worship her on social media started unfollowing, deleting comments, pretending they'd never known her. The sympathy she once thrived on turned into whispers and side eyes. She posted a long, tearful story on Instagram. Sometimes people make mistakes when they're hurting. Please stop judging me. I'm human too. The comments section tore her apart. You lied about a pregnancy? You manipulated your fiancé? Every heart emoji from her old posts had turned into disgust. For the first time, she was living without an audience to believe her. Meanwhile, I said nothing. Not a single post. Not a hint of satisfaction. I went to work, met friends, started sleeping again. But inside, it was strange. Revenge didn't feel triumphant. It felt quiet, heavy, because I'd finally realized how deep her lies had reached, not just into my life, but into the way I saw myself. She'd made me question my sanity, my kindness, my judgment. And now that the mask was off, I was left staring at the hollow space where love used to be. A week later, she showed up at my apartment, eyes red and swollen, voice trembling. I just need to talk, she said. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. You won, okay? She whispered. You destroyed me. I looked at her, the same woman who once held my heart hostage, and simply said, No, you did that yourself. Then I closed the door. Her lies had finally met the truth. And the truth had spoken louder than any revenge ever could. Months passed before the noise around Samantha finally died down. Her posts stopped. Her name stopped popping up in conversations. It was as if she'd been erased from the little world she'd built around herself, one lie at a time. For the first time in years, I could breathe. No constant anxiety, no emotional manipulation, no pretending. Just quiet. I moved to a new apartment in another city. Closer to my new job, the one I almost turned down because of her pregnancy. My mornings became peaceful again. Coffee by the window, soft music, sunlight instead of stress. Sometimes I'd still catch myself checking my phone, expecting one of her frantic messages, but they never came. Just silence, the kind I used to fear, but now cherished. One night, months later, a message came through. Her name lit up my screen for the first time in forever. I know I messed up, she wrote. I wasn't well back then. Can we talk, please? For a few seconds, I just stared at it. My heart didn't race this time. No anger, no nostalgia, just stillness. I typed one sentence. There's nothing left to say. Then I deleted her number. That was the moment I realized true revenge wasn't about humiliation or payback. It was about peace, walking away with your truth intact while theirs falls apart on its own. Samantha had tried to trap me in a lie, but in the end, she caged herself. Sometimes I think about how love can turn into control, and how control can turn into destruction. But then I remind myself, silence can be louder than shouting, patience sharper than rage. I didn't need to ruin her life. I just needed to stop letting her control mine. And in that quiet, I finally got my freedom back.